I just saw something on the internet.
That blew my mind.
The most compelling argument in the world for why water is not wet.
To say that something is wet
means that the water on the surface of that something
can be
Removed.
moved.
Chaz Smith, November 2017. Mr. Smith, you
are wrong.
and I will prove to you why. Oh, hello. Let's just agree on a fundamental premise. Things can only be wet or dry. There can be varying degrees of wetness. Damp, wet, soaking wet. But there can only be dry or wet. There is no third state.
To say that something is wet means that the wetness from that surface can be removed.
Let's flip that around.
To say that something is dry means that the dryness of the surface of that thing can be removed. But if you don't like the idea of removing dryness, let's just add wetness to remove the dryness. Now this table is wet.
He doesn't like that.
Your rice is dry because it's been cooking for 47 hours? Add some wetness. The soil in your plant is dry? Add some water.
It's a cactus. I need water.
Is your diaper wet?
No!
If something is dry, you add water. Dryness is the absence of water, which means that wetness is the presence of water. Is water wet?
No.
That's wrong!
No, you're wrong.
If water is not wet, how does it make things wet? Therein lies the paradox. Dryness is the absence of moisture. Wetness is the presence of water. If water were not wet, its presence could not make something wet.
You make no sense.
To say that water is not wet, yet it's You want some juice? Here you go. To say that water is not wet, but its presence can make something wet, is the same thing as saying that something is not hot.
Yet its presence can make something hot.
Which is only true in the case of chemical reaction. Wetness is a physical change, not a chemical change. Therefore, water cannot not be wet, yet make something wet.
By virtue of its presence.
You are changing the nature of something.
Say it normally.
Water's wet.
This water is making my intestines wet. Go on, drink the wetness. Don't mind me, I'm just drawing my water.
Okay, this has gone full crazy.